All right, going to give the last update of the week here. Kind of pivot yesterday. Started working on some ChatGPT stuff, so I'm adding a ChatGPT library to K2, and it does use a little of the K2. It's got some dependencies here on K2. Pretty easy to remove if you decide you want to do that, and you just kind of want to start your own thing, and you can learn from what I have learned. So let's look at the schema file here. Basically, for now, I've got this ChatGPT chat completions, and this basically is your chat history. And we have a chat ID, which is like a unique chat. So, like when we look at ChatGPT and we've got a bunch of stuff, that's kind of like our chat ID. That's something you can assign. If you don't assign it, it gets auto-assigned, but it will only have one request in there. So if you want to group your history, your chat history, you need to feed it a chat ID. The role is something that is either system, assistant, or user. You're the user. The assistant is ChatGPT when it replies, but you can kind of like, you can create answers, and then that would be like user assistant to kind of coax ChatGPT into answering or doing things the way you want them to do. So you can use assistant, and system is kind of the same thing, except I think system is what they call a pre-prompt, where you're going to kind of tell ChatGPT who it is and how what it's going to be doing. So that's what that gets stored there. The request ID is when it makes a REST request, we get a unique ID, and you'll get two records. So you'll have the record for like for your user chat, the question, and then you'll get the the answer comes back in the same request. You get your response status stored here, and you get the content, and then when it was created. So if we look at the package body, we are storing, just to have easy access to these after we make a call, the actual response message, the last status code. I'll probably put the response role here also. The JSON, if you want access to the actual JSON, and the status code. Let's look at this got kind of big. This chat procedure. This is the main chat procedure. So we create a unique request ID each time this is called using sysGUI ID. This is our cursor, which is going to be all of the messages from that table, order by created date, for our chat ID. So this gets bigger and bigger as the chat goes on, and that allows you to have chat history. Now what we'll probably do is at some point you'll limit how much of this you're actually sending back, or you'll have a parameter you can pass in and say, I only want the last 5 messages. There are limits to the size. They're called tokens. How many tokens you can submit? It's like 4,000 something, low 4,000. It's like 4,090, something like that. And there are ways to estimate the number of tokens, but it's hard to know the exact number of tokens. I think what I'm going to do for that is instead of, they do have like a procedure that's written in Python, I think, that I could probably figure out and do that to estimate the tokens, but it's not that critical, I think. I think what we'll do is I'll probably just look at the messages, and I'll come up with my own way of kind of devising the number of tokens, and then I'll get the actual number of tokens, and whatever the difference is, I'll just like have a fudge factor that's filtered in or whatever, and it'll be good enough that you can have some idea of the token size of your messages before you submit them. Or maybe I could just ask ChatGPT to write me a token thing in PL SQL that tells me how many tokens a message is, and it probably would do a pretty good job of that, actually. So if we don't have a chat ID, we assign one. Usually you're going to want to pass in the chat ID, but it's not necessary. And then we insert that first record. This is what you want to say into the completions table. And then we build up the JSON. This isn't too ugly. There might be a way you could do this in SQL from the table, but this is not bad. I think we need to there might be issues with single ticks and stuff like that in message.contact. So these are your messages, and there's the role. So it's basically, user assistant, user assistant, user assistant, and that's going to be your chat history. We strip off the final comment at the end, and close it out and throw that to debug. Then we build our request. We're using a bearer token, which is your secret API key that you get from your ChatGPT interface. That's stored in the ChatGPT config file. And then we make our request, post our data. We get the last status code here, and then we update the table with that status code. And we debug the status code. Should probably actually be doing this. Shouldn't be calling that twice. Okay. And then we're going to use the K2 functionality here to take that JSON, whatever it is, I don't know what it is, this is the neat thing, and just turn it into tables and rows. I'll show you that in a minute. And then we're going to check for errors here. This is not the greatest error checker, but it's for a good first pass. So we're going to look and see if in this data we just unraveled, if there is an object called root.error. If there was an error. And we could check status code, but status codes there's a lot of different status codes, so you kind of have to, say, is it in the 200 range? If it's not in the 200 range, it's probably some sort of error, even if it's like a continual redirect, or I don't know. There's 300s, there's 400s, there's the 500. I really just want a Boolean, so this is more of a Boolean. If there's a root.error, if that's what your JSON came back with, then what we're going to do is raise the root.error type and error message, and that'll come down, and we'll actually get that logged, and we'll also raise that out, so you'll see that error. So if we get past there's no errors, we're going to get the last response. Now you can get like multiple messages. We're just assuming one. We're going to deal with whatever the first response is. You can set it up so that it generates multiple. Don't need to do that here yet. That could be a more advanced feature that's needed down the road. So we get the response message. That's obviously our global variable. And then we do another insert because we got to insert the response. So we insert the original question. We update it with the request ID or the response status once we actually get a status. I don't know that needs to be there. Actually, yeah, I don't know that needs to be there. That might not. This might go. I'm going to comment that out. I don't think that needs to be there because when I yeah, that ain't working. How do I do that? Oh, sorry, my mind does not think. I know how to do this, and for some reason, I can't comment that out. I know the keyboard shortcut, but having the camera on and video, all of a sudden, my mind has spaced out. That ain't it. Come on, what is it? I can't believe I forgot that. So this will probably get commented out. And, here, I'll show you a cool thing you can do in Sublime. There we go. So we get down here, we insert the last message. That's all it's doing now. Let's look at the test. So this is our test. We're using our ArcSQL stupid simple unit test frameworks. It just works perfect for dumb stuff like this. So easy. Nothing to install, nothing to configure. You install K2. So we're going to do ChatGPT chat, P messages. What is the third letter of the English alphabet? Only answer with the letter. And then if ChatGPT last response like C, we could check for C. I think that actually works. Do a trim on it maybe. And then pass test, else fail test. And that worked last time I ran it. So let's look at what's in chat completions here. This is our example of the data that ran. Let's make sure it's empty. Let's do the manual test. Okay, and I don't know if I need to commit that. Let's see what we got. Here we go. Okay, so you can see we got user assistant, our request ID, the status, and then that and the answer. Let's look at our JSON data. This is the table which takes that JSON response, puts it into tables and rows, and then we could look these up easily. We can loop through them. We can do all kinds of cool things. This is so easy to use for quickly building, a service that interacts with JSON. This is just so simple for me anyway, and it's performant enough for now. We can always optimize later. So anyway, that's working. There's obviously a lot more that I could do. But what we'll do is the first thing I want to accomplish is simply replace the ChatGPT interface that I currently use and build something in Apex that's basically the same thing. Should be pretty easy to do, and we'll work on that next week, and that will be cool because I'll have my own personal ChatGPT, and I can store all the history, and then we can start to tweak it and then do some experiments. I'm not sure what the first thing, the most complicated one I can think of is this generic REST interface where I describe a REST interface that does not exist. There's the generic one exists, but I describe a generic REST interface, and ChatGPT uses I describe a specific JSON type REST interface, a JSON format for REST interface, and then ChatGPT uses the generic interface to make calls to with that specific thing, and then somehow I'm able to just set the context for what I'm doing, or have ChatGPT figure it out, or maybe I have some buttons and I just say, I'm recording something, a reminder. I'm recording this or something. I want it to be really easy. I want it to be better than what Siri does somehow. So I could play around with that. That's probably a project that's a little bigger than I can handle, but maybe I can prototype something very basic. The other thing is interesting is the idea that I had about seeing if I can get ChatGPT to generate HTML, CSS, and all that on the back end through the front end by describing what I want, and then having a dynamic HTML, dynamic content object pulling that as I'm doing it on my Apex page. But lots of other little ideas like how to finding something and doing data deduplication or something like that. But in general, it'll be neat to know that I've got this available and I can try it out. I can incorporate it into my app. Now that the friction, so it's always about reducing friction. The friction to implement ChatGPT into my application is so low now, and it will only get lower because I have something to work with. So that's what the next week or so is about, is really getting this into K2, and then I'll find ways to use it down the road. Don't know that I'll play. They've got APIs for image and stuff like that. Maybe, if I'm going to take a week or two, I should have time to look at that. So maybe we'll look at some of that. Maybe doing some image manipulation, this would be cool. Hey, this would be super cool, right? Generate. If we could generate an icon, do a description, and then have a page that it shows what it did, and then click something and save that to our Oracle Apex application so that we can use it, that would be pretty cool. So yeah, I'm not sure what all, that's a lot funner than going to another site, doing it, and then importing it and all that. To be able to do it right there in the app, on the page, maybe see where they're going to show it up here, show it here, show it not, maybe it would show it with every, maybe it would have a generic name, and then whatever you reload the page, it shows that, and then you can, if you like it, then you can save it or something. That would be cool. Probably, again, maybe a bit more than I can tackle. But neat ideas, and hopefully over time, others will start using some of these libraries, maybe start using K2, maybe start doing development on K2, because I think this is going to be an awesome development tool for Oracle Apex down the road as it gets better and better. So anyway, that's it. Have a nice weekend, and thanks for watching, and I'll be publishing more next week, hopefully.